If you are experiencing foundation issues, get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
We're glad to have with us this morning Clara Curtis, and Clara has penned the words in the book, God Gave Me Guts. Clara, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jimmy Dale.
Good to have you with us today. And why this book?
Well, you know, I see people all the time on Facebook trying to decide what happened in their previous life. And I thought, you know, why do I let my grandkids not know who I am? So I wrote this book basically for them to know what their grandmother, their Nana was really like, even though they already knew what they wanted to know. But this is my beginning.
Now, this was what, 2018 you penned the words?
2018, but I had started this book probably 10, 15 years earlier, and just never proceeded with it, just procrastinated.
Now, can people buy this book?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
Okay.
And for those that are thinking of writing, Amazon's a great outlet to be able to print your book. They'll print it for nothing. They make the money if it's sold.
Here is the cover. God Gave Me Guts by Clara Curtis, and you can get that on Amazon, and there it is right there, Clara.
And there's something to that cover, Jimmy Dale.
Okay.
Gave is over the word of give. My son gave me a plaque one time that said, God give me guts. And he said, I thought it said gave. And I thought, Lord, don't let my mother have any more guts. And so that's the reason it's got gave over give.
I see that. What's the book about? Let's talk about it.
It's about Clara Blackburn Curtis, basically the trials and the tribulations, the wonderful life that I've had. Even though I'm a country girl from Winterboro, Alabama, I've had an extraordinary, wonderful life. I've traveled, I've done all the things I've ever wanted to do.
Talk about your very early childhood.
My parents, and some people probably think I made a mistake. I say in there they're extraordinary, and they say, you're trying to say extraordinary. But no, I said they're extraordinary because they were just cotton mill workers. My mom had 2 children from a previous divorce. My dad had 4 children from a deceased wife. And they had me. So it's your kids, my kids, and our kid. So we were what you'd call a dysfunctional family probably in that day.
Growing up, talk about that a little.
Well, you know, being a country girl and being a young child, I didn't have any playmates or anything. And then I became sickly in my 2nd grade year. And I write in there about how wonderful the teachers were in those days because they came to my house and helped me through it all to learn. And so the doctor said that it was a blood disease. And back in those days, they didn't have any real knowledge of leukemia or those kind of things. And so I just feel like being the doctor I am, which is a joke, that it was anemia. But the doctor insisted that we needed to move to a warmer climate. So off we went to the tropical paradise of Florida. And I thought it was wonderful because you could walk out the back door and get oranges and grapefruit and all that kind of stuff.
Did you want to come back to Alabama?
Well, at first I did because when I was in the 3rd grade at that time, midways, I was so far behind that I felt like everybody thought I was ignorant and had something against me. And for a 3rd grader, that's a lot to handle. So I wanted to come back. I even swore to my parents that I was going to get on my bicycle and ride back to Alabama.
I don't want to talk about those bicycle rides. That's another day and another story.
Well, go ahead and tell it.
This red tie that I'm wearing.
And I'm so proud of it.
Clara Curtis is the reason I'm wearing red.
Well, back to my childhood, I learned to love it, and it was as hard to move back to Alabama as it was to move to Florida. But I was a teenager when I moved back. I was a little child when I moved down there. And I made some wonderful friends while I was down there, and I hated to leave them. And matter of fact, I still communicate with one of them. And went back about 5 years ago and even communicated with the 2 cowboys that if you read the book, you'll understand that my dad would make sawhorses, and I had everything for a saloon. And we played cowboys and Indians, but naturally I was always the cowboy. And these 2 boys wanted to be cowboys, and so I just told them to go home. And I was a little bit selfish, I think, back in those days. And probably still got some of those talents, but my dad shamed me real bad and said, now you don't have anybody to play with. And so I moseyed back up that way and got them to come back and told them they could be cowboys, but I only let them be that way.
You gave in a little bit, didn't you?
Well, they only got to be cowboys for 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And then they had to go back to being Indians. Because when I took all the stuff in the house or in the garage, I put it back in the garage. They didn't have anything to play with, so.
Talk about your high school days.
I went to Winterboro High School, and it was a rude awakening, I guess, because I was far advanced when I came back from Florida. I don't know what the difference was, other than I was making A's and B's, and back then I made C's. So it was different. But I never really had a high school years. My mother was the provider. My dad had already developed dementia. So it was pretty much, I had to work after school.
What kind of challenge was that?
Well, I don't think I even realized that it was a challenge, Jimmy, and I think a lot of people don't when they look back over their lives. Makes you who you are. But for me, my mother had to provide the income, and my dad was totally almost disabled at that time and did become, I only had my dad for 22 years, 21, I guess you might say. Because he developed dementia. It runs in our family. So if anybody sees me acting strange, just know that I'm probably got dementia. So.
Did they know what that disease was at that time, I guess?
No, and sadly to say, they gave it a name, which is Alzheimer's, but they don't have any different rewards for getting any better. That's the sad problem about it.
Yeah. Clara Curtis, God gave me guts. She wrote this a couple of 3 years ago, and she's with us this morning for a few more minutes. You didn't get to finish high school?
Yes, I did.
You did? Okay.
But I was a little bit wayward, I guess, in ways, and so I became pregnant 3 months before time for me to graduate, so I did not graduate with my class.
Okay.
But I did go back when I was 31 and get
Wow.
my GED. Did really well, even got offered of a scholarship. But I don't know, I guess I'm just too fidgety for some reason. School just never really interested me. And it's funny because it's not in the book, but I believe in doing things, continuing doing things for yourself that are different. And I did go back and became a substitute teacher. Lasted 1 whole year, and I promised myself I'd never do that again.
I wonder what the students thought that year.
Well, one little boy was so cute. He said, he was hugging my neck. He said, "You're old." And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "But I like you."
All right.
So that was okay.
Right.
And they were, Paula Hurt is my cousin, by the way, and she got me to Indian Valley, and I never got to leave. And I absolutely could have taught every day of the week, I guess, if I'd have wanted to. But it was an experience, and I think that that's what everybody needs, is a new experience. And they become complacent. They go to work the same way, and they wear the same thing. I wore this yellow today because we don't have any sunshine outside and haven't had in quite a while. So I decided I'd be the sunshine today.
That will work. Talk about your miracle child.
My miracle child was born 7 weeks early. He weighed 3 pounds and 3 3/4 ounces. And for those of you that don't know, that's Barry Curtis. And if you look at him today, you'd never believe it. But he was a very sickly child. And I tell him all the time he was my miracle baby, because I don't know that we would have ever got him had it not been the hand of God. I mean, kept him, that's for sure. And I tell him all the time that he has a life and he needs to live it because it was given to him, which is the truth for all of us. That's the reason that I write in the back of my book that God has plans for us, which is Jeremiah 29:11, which is my favorite Bible verse. And it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." And that's really true.
Yeah.
And the sad thing that bothers me, and the book has a lot of motivational points in it, as well as the history of my life, which probably don't interest anybody, but I thought it did. And I hope that we get this on YouTube, because I got relatives all over the United States. And I know they want to see their Aunt Clara make a fool of herself.
You open up in this book. I mean, you really bare your soul, really, in this book.
Right.
You talk about a painful divorce.
Right, and it was painful because after 16 years, there was obstacles that occurred, and I don't like to talk about them because it's just not necessary. But they were hurtful, and I just never learned to forgive. And I remember a pastor saying one time, you learn to forgive, but you never learn to forget. I never did either one of them. So finally the divorce occurred, and it really was truly a blessing in many ways. Even for my son, it was a blessing because there had been so much hostility in the thing. So I'm just saying to those of you out there that if you've had a divorce, don't let it be ugly and mean. That child deserves to have a mother and a father, and they deserve to have good feelings about them, both of them. So that's what I always told Barry, is that his daddy wasn't the easiest things for me to live with, but it was his dad, and it's the only one he would ever have. And he would be the one to decide how he felt about it.
Yeah. So the divorce happens, and then where is Clara Curtis?
Well, I lost my job after 13 years of working at the Sylacauga Garment Factory as an office manager. I lost my job, so I'm just there, just nothing. Got a 13-year-old son, because the divorce said that he would live with me, except on weekends he would live with
Did you
his
see
dad.
the sunshine then?
No. I was hurting, but I decided that we needed a vacation. So we all went to Florida, and while I was there, I ran into this wonderful friend who worked at the mental health right next to the garment factory that I had worked for 13 years. And she said, I was telling her about my dilemma, that I didn't have a job and that I didn't know what I was going to do. And so she insisted that I go on Monday for an interview. Got that job, and boy, did it change my life.
Wow.
I mean, mental health, everybody suffers from mental health. And you know something that I wanted to emphasize from this book, I read the other day on TV where 93,000 people had committed suicide during the pandemic. Just realizing that life doesn't have a meaning, and that's not true. Everybody has trials and tribulations. It just depends on who you let take care of those trials and tribulations.
When did you decide that, hey, I'm going to get this, it's not going to get me?
Well, actually, I decided when I was in a teenager. A young friend of mine was going to preach his first time. He is now a preacher in Kissimmee, Florida, by the way. And he just talked about Jesus, and I just thought, I need to know this person. I need to feel what he's feeling. And so I accepted Jesus as my Savior, and that he died for me so that I could have a life like I'm living today. And that's when I guess I realized, even though I didn't get led right away, I did some foolish, stupid things, which is something we all do, but he forgives you. That's the thing about it. He forgives you, and you may not forgive yourself, but once you get to a certain point, you realize he expects you to forgive yourself.
Clara, you bring up something that's very, very important, and this show is viewed all across the state of Alabama on Spectrum Cable. Forgiving oneself can be awfully difficult.
Very much difficult. But those years of trials and tribulations is what makes a person. It makes them grow. It makes them become what they can be. God didn't make any junk. Humans make junk. We decide what we want to do and what we don't want to do. And we get into ruts, and we don't want to change, just like the red tie. It really means something to wear a red tie. When I see that red tie, I think of excitement. I think of challenges. I think of color is real important. That's why I wore the yellow today, because we don't have any sunshine.
Clara, many years ago, we were together, and she was talking about being positive, don't get in a rut. And so I was working at Flavor Rich at that time and lived on the other end of Norton, and rode a bicycle to work. And I was talking to Clara about it and riding a bicycle. She said, just take a different route. Well, I did, and the dog made me wreck my bike. So, different ways of doing different things. But where's Clara Curtis now?
You know, it's funny that you said that. I've been reading a lot during the pandemic. I had a small wholesale business and I had to close it up. And I don't really know, but I've been praying a lot about it, that I need a direction for where I need to go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel the need to sit still. Even though I have a birthday next month, I still think that God has a lot of things for me to do. Even though when I look back over the life that I've had, and it's all in the book about the travels and the kids I've met, and a lot of it.
You traveled a lot, didn't you?
Oh, yes. I've been to 13 countries and just had some of the sweetest kids in the whole wide world. I have a Spanish son and a Spanish daughter that I constantly keep in touch with. My Spanish son was here 2 years ago, the year before the pandemic. But I communicate with many of them still from Facebook. They're grown, got families of their own, but it's just a wonderful thing. And that's some of the things that I'm trying to get across in the book, is that you make your own choices. Mm-hmm. You make your own happiness. God gave you all of that. He gave you the ability, the wisdom to know what to do. But for some reason, you just, and I see this on Facebook all the time, God help us. God, well, He's already given us a wonderful country. What more do we want? We need to get up and get off of our
Before
duffs.
we go this morning, and I know you're awfully proud of all of them, but your grandchildren are special to you.
Love my grandkids. I speak to my grandson practically 2 or 3 times a week, and he thinks a lot like I do. And I like to think that I'm leaving them with something, that not just this book, but some ideas in life and how to go forth with it and enjoy it. You know, I copied something off. There's 2 ways that you can be rich. Number 1, you can make more money and work harder, or you can want less. And as I've gotten older, I want less. And age is just irrelevant. It's just not important. If you're over the hill, you got to go faster. So those are some things that I got off of Facebook, I think. But it's been a blessing for me. My life has been, even from coming from those extraordinary parents, they left me with a lot of abilities that I have. And thank God that at the age of 13, I decided I wanted whatever it was that young boy was saying in his sermon.
And it just comes to my mind, and it's not in my notes or anything, but you had a long-time pet that passed away just a week or so ago, and I know that was heartbreaking.
I almost get tears in my eyes thinking about it. I had lived with Agatha for 19 years. She was a little snit, but she was my companion. She was the love of my life. You know, I lived with her longer than I did my ex-husband. And it was really very difficult for me to have to put her to sleep, but her life quality was not very good. I wish sometimes humans could be that way when our lives are not real good, that we could just get an injection and go on.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm going today to pick up her ashes. I had them cremated, and I've already told Barry that I want her put in the casket with me, so she'll always be with me.
How do you want to be remembered, Clara?
How do I want to be remembered? That I was not a bargain basement friend, that I really care. I often come across to people, as a matter of fact, someone told me one time that I was uppity. I'm not really uppity, I'm just into life, you know, I'm just into doing the things I want to do. And I know that God made me, so I've got a lot of different personalities that I can use if I choose to. And so do you, and so does everybody else.
Yeah.
But like you said before we came on the air, sometimes it's hard to give it out. You know, we think that we've got to look a certain way, we got to act a certain way. Well, I don't really care anymore. That's the fun thing about life.
Many of you have seen Clara and Randy Kane interact on Facebook, and that's for another day. But there's a book that Clara has given me that I'm going to read. I read this one first, But there's another book that I'm going to read and help you understand a little bit about her and Randy's relationship. And a lot of people don't understand that relationship, but that's another topic for another day.
Yeah, they don't understand that we're just really good friends. I asked Randy, did he want to be on with me? And he said no, that it was it was my book and my day, and that I needed to just be on there by myself. And I have to tell you, I miss him a little bit over there, me not having somebody to fight with a little bit.
And, you know, there's an old song that says, friends are friends forever.
Right. And the same thing's true with my cat. The same thing's true with Randy.
Absolutely.
He will always be my friend. Makes me mad sometimes. Just want to shake him real hard. But he's still my friend.
Clara Curtis and her book, God Gave Me Guts. And you can get this on Amazon if you'd like. And Clara, we appreciate you joining us this morning. Hope you have a fantastic sunshiny day in your bright yellow.
I hope so too. Would you do me the honor of reading what I wrote for you in the front?
I read that the other day, and that's pretty cool.
And there's a reason for that, because once you read the book,
may you always find joy waiting
to be discovered.
Yep.
That's the key to life. You ask me how did I want to remember. Always finding joy to be discovered.
Yeah. Clara, it's an honor to have you. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you so very much for allowing me. And if anybody, I don't have any books any longer. 2018, they gone a long time ago. But if you looking for something to do in life with yourself, because God didn't make any junk, then by all means, contact Amazon and get it.
All right. We got more coming up on Daybreak Live right after this time out.